Hello and welcome to my channel. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Three years ago, I moved down a few states on the east coast to a new city. Due to lack of money, I couldn't make the trip to see the place before making the move. But I was only renting, so there wasn't too much risk in it. It was mid-September when the movers came and loaded everything up, then dropped it off at the house. The landlord was nice enough to let the movers in for me to unload because I wasn't actually there until the following week. It was Monday evening when I finally arrived and saw the house in person for the first time. It was a mess with boxes everywhere and furniture laying all around, but the house itself was alright. The layout was interesting in that it was very separated. It was a single story with the kitchen and living room on one side of the house, then on the other side was a long hallway where all the bedrooms and bathrooms were. Since it was already late, I went to the master bedroom and started working on getting the bed put together. Then I shut off the lights and went to sleep. I didn't have a clock set up yet, so I don't know what time it was, but in the middle of the night I woke up to an odd sound. I thought it was a noise that the house was making, but I wanted to see what it was and if it was something I needed to get the landlord to know about. I got up and walked over to the room door. As I got closer though, I realised it was coming from somewhere down the hallway. I opened the door and it stopped almost instantly. The hallway was pitch black, so I flicked on the light but nothing was there. I slowly walked down and peered into the living room. It looked the same as it had earlier. But I turned on the lights and looked around just to be sure. On the floor there was a lot of footprints scattered between the boxes that were laying around. I knew it was likely from the movers. With no other signs of anything, I went back to the bedroom. It took a while for me to fall asleep again, because I kept thinking about how the sound stopped as soon as I opened the door. I tried to come up with any possible way this could be the house making noises, but nothing came to mind. When I drifted back asleep, it felt like I only stayed asleep for a minute before I was woken up by a sudden thump followed by footsteps running down the hallway. My eyes shot open and I looked over at my bedroom door. The door was wide open and on the ground were clear footprints coming right up to my bed. I got up and hurried to see who was there, but by then they were long gone. All that was left was scuffled prints from them running away. I got my phone and called the police, locking myself into the bathroom until they arrived. When they did arrive, they oddly found no signs of a break-in. Aside from a footprint, I convinced myself that they must have gained access during the week before I arrived at the house, but something still didn't sit right with me. After unpacking and checking each box, nothing seemed to be missing. It obviously makes me wonder what they were even doing in my house. But the biggest mystery is why did they walk up to my bed and what was the thump sound that I heard just before they ran away. The landlord was eager to allow me to break the contract and move out, so long as I didn't say anything about the break-in. At the time it sounded like he just didn't want anyone to be scared away from the house, so that he wouldn't miss out on his rental income. But something seemed really dodgy about that. When I was 21, I made the poor decision to move out of my parents' house before I could afford a place of my own. It was something I actually planned out for months, searching for cheap apartments, roommates and anything that could help me move out. For some reason, I just prioritised moving out on my own over anything else. After months of searching, I found a post on Facebook about a room for rent. It was in my area. It was a 2-bedroom house. The owner was renting out the 2nd bedroom. I sent him a message on Facebook and got a reply within minutes. He asked a couple of questions, then sent over a document. It looked like a huge list of rules for moving in, all simple stuff that's pretty much common sense. After agreeing to all the rules, he let me come over to look at the room. The same day when I got there, I was very surprised at how clean and well put together it was. The place looked like it was a model house, so perfectly decorated and furnished. The owner Terry was a little bit weird, though he was in his late 20s, but his personalities and looks didn't match the way the house looked. He was wearing a dirty t-shirt and just had a weird way of talking. Still, I was blinded by the possibility of moving out. A week later, I packed up a rental van with my stuff and drove it down to the house. When I walked inside, I almost thought I walked into the wrong house. It was so empty, no decorations or furniture except for an old couch in the living room. It was a completely different looking place from the one that I had seen at first. Terry was standing there and acted like nothing was different, talking my ear off about how excited he was to have a roommate. I asked about all the furniture and everything, but he basically ignored my question and just went straight to the moving my stuff into the house. Being a little weirded out, I still moved in. Several weeks went by, and to be honest, I rarely even saw Terry. He was always working and didn't get home until late at night. About a month in, I started realising that Terry had stopped coming home most nights. It was maybe once a week I'd hear him get home around 2 or 3 a.m. He'd hang around downstairs for a while, then leave and wouldn't show up for another week or so. Part of me didn't care because I was happy to have the house to myself, but another part of me was curious about what he was up to. I mean, he wanted me to move in so bad, but now he's never here. Then one night at about 2 a.m, weeks since I seen Terry, I was woken up to him banging on my bedroom door and yelling my name. I got up and rushed over. Terry was standing in the doorway with sweat dripping from his head and a look of anger. "Do not leave the room," he said, in a harsh voice, then grabbed the door and ripped the handle out of my hand, slamming it shut. I stood there in shock, listening to him walk downstairs. I opened the door quietly, and after a few seconds I heard the sound of him dragging something heavy across the floor and into the garage. I ran downstairs to see what was going on. There was a smear of mud and dirt going across the kitchen and leading up to the garage door. I tried to open it, but somehow he locked it from inside. I realised it was best just to remove myself from the situation and ran out to my car, driving away while calling the cops. When they got to the house, Terry was already gone and the smears on the floor had been cleaned up. After some days of investigation, it turned out that Terry was actually renting the house from someone else. So I wasn't even allowed to have legally moved in, and all the documents he sent me and had me sign were fake. Terry likely wasn't his real name either, and as far as I know, he never showed up after that. I don't know for sure what he was up to, but he was so adamant about me staying in my room that night. Then with him vanishing afterwards, he clearly had something horrible he was hiding. But what really confuses me is why he wanted me to move into the house with him so badly. I can't help but think that he had some sort of plans for me, and I barely got out of there without having to find out the hard way. This was about 3 years ago. I was staying in a rental house while vacationing to see my brother. He lives 6 hours away from me, so I don't get to see him very often, and he only has a 1-bedroom apartment, which means I have to stay elsewhere when I do see him. The house I rented out was really close to my brother's apartment. It was the same price as nearby hotels, so it was an easy choice to go for. I had gotten into town early in the morning and met up with my brother for lunch. Then we got some groceries and was back at the rental around 5 p.m. The place didn't have a lot to offer other than a couch, TV and bed, but for the price I wasn't expecting too much. I stayed up till about 9 o'clock, then got into bed. It had been a long day, so I was looking forward to getting a good amount of sleep. I laid in bed awake for longer than I wanted, falling asleep after an hour. When my eyes opened, the room was in full darkness, and I could sense that it was in the middle of the night. Before I could even check the time, I thought I heard something outside my room, footsteps slowly walking down the hallway, and then the door closing softly, followed by silence. It was like my whole body had been frozen, laying in the bed, still and staring through the dark room. After a minute passed of no more sounds, I got up and looked into the hallway. At the far end I could see the front door, which I knew was the door I heard him close, but I didn't know if they were still in the house or if they had left. I quietly walked through the other rooms, not seeing anyone. Actually, the only sign of them having been here was the front door being unlocked. I didn't see any footprints or notice anything missing. After checking the locks on all the doors, I called 911. They came fairly quick, but didn't do much of anything. They said to make sure all the doors were locked and to contact the owner. But aside from their useless advice, they provided no intent to figure it out. I stayed up that night and waited until morning, unable to sleep. After calling the owner of the rental and discussing what had happened, I went to see my brother. While out, the owner let me know that he changed the PIN code on the door, which did make me feel a lot better. I was out until late that day, though getting some dinner and drinks with my brother and being dropped off at the rental sometime between 8 and 9. I went to the couch and sat down, feeling sleepy, but also feeling that nervousness again about the situation. Every time my eyes were about to close, my head would be filled with fear about the intruder coming back. Knowing I needed to sleep tonight, since I didn't get any last night, I decided to go through the house again and check the rooms, in hope that it would ease my mind. I walked around the living room and kitchen, then went out to the hallway, to the bedrooms. I opened the closet and checked the attached bedroom, and just before I walked out I heard footsteps running through the hallway towards the bedroom I was in. I swung around the corner and only caught a glimpse of a large man as he slammed the bedroom door shut. Then I heard his footsteps departing and going towards the living room. I stood in place and just listened. He went all around the living room and kitchen, staying inside the house for probably 2 minutes before I heard the front door open and close behind him. The police came quickly after I called them again, and this time the homeowner came by as well. The living room and kitchen looked like it had been ransacked, and furniture was scattered all over, and the cabinets were all open, with the things inside them having been tossed over the floor. After a closer look though, the owner didn't see anything that was missing. It looked like whoever that man was looking for something very specific and nothing more. I left the rental after that and got a hotel. Then within a few days I was never updated again about anything. I assumed he was never found, but that situation had left me with a lot of questions. Something that really gets to me is that I had checked the entire house that one night. So where was he hiding? And how long had he been in the house with me? He was probably watching me, and what would have happened if I had fallen asleep on the couch?